Hello, everybody.
Hey, hello.
It's Guy
And Tony.
Manly Way. We're driving right now, so
So my attention will be partial, and that's a good thing.
Hopefully, more than partial. We really want the attention on the road.
Yes.
No.
Fortunately, in Montana, we don't have like lots of traffic.
No, not traffic like other places.
No.
But anyhow, so I read a cool story this morning, and I wanted to share it with you, and then get Tony's opinion. Tony actually hasn't even heard the story, so it'll be interesting.
I'm anticipating this as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting little story. So I'll just tell you what it is. So this 80-some-year-old dad was sitting in the living room with his 40-some-year-old son. His son was kind of educated, high tech, and so he's sitting in the room, in their living room, and a crow is outside the window. It just lands outside the window. And the 80-year-old dad says, "What's that?" And the kid, the dad.
That's a good story.
Yeah, so
that's great. I know. I'm thinking, if it landed on the outside of window of mine, I'd shoot it. But that's why I'm not telling the story.
It's not done yet.
Oh.
Just wait.
Okay.
Wait.
I gotta wait. Sorry.
Yeah. So then the son looks up from his phone, and he's like, "Dad, it's a crow." And so then a minute later, the dad goes, "What's that?" He's like, "Dad, it's a crow." About a minute or so later, the dad goes, "Hey, what's that?" He's like, "Dad, it's a freaking crow! It's a crow!" A few minutes later, he goes, "Hey, what's that?" And the son is like, "Are you stupid or something? It's a crow. I already told you it's a crow." And the dad, he just chuckles and he walks into the other room. He comes back with a diary.
Oh.
And the diary was when the son was a young kid. And he's like, and so he just gives it to his son and he reads it. And the son reads, "Today, a crow landed outside the window, and my son asked me what it was. And I told him it was a crow. And he asked me 23 more times that day, what was that? And I told him it was a crow. Now, I worked really hard to be patient with him and not to snap at him because he's learning." Right. And so, and then at the end of the day, I hugged him when he asked me the last time, what was that? And I told him it was a crow. And the son was torn up. He couldn't even hear it 4 times before he lost his temper. And what his dad was trying to get him to realize is, you have no patience, son. You have no patience at all. And so it's interesting how we think, who we think we are can, when it's reflected in somebody else's eyes, can be totally different than what it really is. I know for myself, when my kids have told me at times, "That really hurt my feelings," or you really snapped at me there, and they don't think that they deserved it. I've had to stop and really think about it and go, "Wow, I'm really sorry. I didn't even realize what I was doing." And so that little story is kind of a wake-up call to us dads, especially, that our kids might do something or say something, or not even when they're little, but when they're older.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. My 14-year-old daughter, it's like, "Can you do the dishes? Can you do the dishes?" And the whole helping her understand the importance of having clean dishes in the house, and that it's her job and stuff like that. Those are things that, why we expect them to have, they get it the first time and they don't need it explained to them again. I don't understand. What do you think?
I think there's a lot of people out there that have that same question. You know what? Actually, a lot of it just goes back to sometimes I think that's why we as parents, you have to exercise even more patience, because I think our kids just get so used to us
Yeah.
that they're already anticipating something. They already know because they've been around us so long. Because you'll watch them go over to somebody else's house, right, and immediately react to what somebody else will ask them to do. And I think it's that part of it. And I don't know. I think it's just a part of, even for a parent, it continues to grow patience in us and to love them even when they're not listening.
Yep.
And that is a hard thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have to admit that's one of those areas that I'm weak, but like you said earlier, like that, being as a parent, as a father, especially with girls, there's times where they won't let me know that. I have to be very in tune with I call it the way they're reacting or acting, their eyes, different movements of their face, to know something wasn't said correctly. I'm an eyes person. I'll look at someone's eyes and I can tell if something's going on.
Yep.
And so sometimes I had to figure it out on my own. Did I say that? Or repeat? This is my favorite one that I did with my kids. Repeat to me, what did I just say? And sometimes what comes back is so different than what I said.
Yeah.
And so that helped me. And sometimes when they repeat it back, I'm going, I guess maybe that wasn't very kind the way I said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you yelled at me for this. I didn't think I was yelling.
Right.
Well,
sometimes it's just looking.
Yeah.
Well, you yelled at me and I didn't say anything. And it was just a look.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So the other part, I'm not sure. Do you have an answer for that?
No. I actually,
because I'm gonna take notes if you do.
I had that.
Well, I won't do it right now.
I had the snap, the dad snap.
The snap.
The really loud snap that would get their attention.
Oh, there?
If we were in a store or somewhere and I had to get their attention, I would snap. As they got older, they resented the heck out of that.
I bet.
Man, if I would snap, one time I snapped at my wife. I tried to get her attention. I was in public and I snapped. And she looked at me and she's like,
that didn't go
well. You did not just snap at me. And I'm like,
go well. I wish I could have been there to see that.
Like, just trying to get your attention.
Sorry.
I'm really sorry. But, it's one of those things where
we react. It's natural almost, right?
Yeah, some things that you do over and over and over.
Yeah. Not that everything is good. We should probably, in ourselves, be aware of some of those habits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is that not all of this stuff is bad. Some of the stuff you have to have.
Right.
But I also think that by interacting, I've found by interacting with my kids, and there was one time where my daughter was upset at me. And she just didn't want to talk, and I stopped what I was doing and I sat down, and she still didn't want to talk. And we were separated from her mom at the time, and it was just her and I. We were living in a single wide trailer, a camp trailer in Montana in the winter. And
that is a challenge if you are not familiar with Montana. That's a challenge.
So we had moved back to Montana anyhow. So my daughter and I, my teenage daughter and I, were sharing a little camp trailer until the rest of my family moved up. So anyhow, she was upset at me, and I couldn't get out of her what was going on. So I thought of something that later on I thought, well, that really worked well. I just said, let's go. And so we went to Dairy Queen. And we just sat down at Dairy Queen and got something and just sat there. And I didn't say a lot. I just sat and waited. And we just ate a little bit. And then she started to talk. It was like just getting her out of that situation, out of the little camper, I guess, and getting us out of that tense situation and putting us somewhere else.
Yeah.
She then started to talk to me. And she's like, when you do what you're doing, when you say those things, it really frustrates me. And it's really, it was basically us living in such close quarters, and, it was a lot of different things. And I just had to hear her and hear what she had to say. And then I took action, and I actually tried to change things and change how I did things.
Was a lot of it like in the communication?
It was communication. It was how I was communicating with her, and because we're in such close quarters, we didn't have, literally we were sleeping right next to each other. We didn't even have a door between us. So it was interesting. I mean, if you've ever hung out with your teenage daughter and then lived for 7 months in a little camper trailer, it's different.
Very
now,
close.
at the end of it, we really got very close and it was really fun. But there were some times that were really tense. It was interesting.
Wow.
But I think that just hearing her apologizing, talking to her, it didn't mean that I'm her buddy or that I'm her pal. I'm still her parent, but that I can admit when I'm wrong too.
Yep.
And then,
Well, because I look at it even as adults. There's certain things that I recall in my childhood that if my dad could have did things differently, I learned it real quick with my daughters. One daughter was like, for instance, discipline. It was just having her in a room, looking out what was going on, and not being able to come out if she had her timeout time. That was better than any. That's the best discipline ever, just to have her sit, because she's such an engaging person.
oh, okay.
So she understood that.
Yeah.
Where my other daughter was just a little bit different, and for so many ways. And that's that part of it is just as dudes is not what happens is we think people think like we do, so we react and speak the way. And that's not always the case.
And a lot of it is what our parents have done or what
Yes.
we've been taught, and we don't take the time to realize, hey, what we're doing isn't really working.
Right.
Instead of trying to do that harder or louder,
Right.
or with more emphasis, actually changing
Yeah.
and trying to figure out what does work.
Yes.
And
Because everyone's going to have their own opinion. They're going to tell you this is what you should do.
Yep.
But Guy and I are going to tell you, you will know what to do, and it'll be specific
yeah.
to what you and your kids.
And if you don't know what to do, you gotta get on some podcasts. You gotta read some books.
Right.
You gotta figure out a lot of different approaches, and then figure out
Yes.
which approach works for you.
Yes.
But if what you're doing is not working, you gotta change it.
Change it.
It's
not a bad thing. Change is not a bad thing.
No. And saying you're sorry to your kids is not a bad thing.
No.
One thing that
And another thing I recommend, even instead of saying sorry, I said, "Will you forgive me?"
yes.
I think that there's so much weight, because I used to just say sorry, and they almost thought that it was just a phrase. It didn't really mean anything.
Yep.
And it's an amazing for you to say, "Will you forgive me?" There's some weight to that.
Yeah.
Even saying it, you're like, it's more sorry just kind of throws out there, but "Will you forgive me?" has some weight, and that's a good thing, because if you exercise that, they're going to exercise it. They're going to say, yes, if something like that in the future, I'm going to learn that from my parents, and especially their dads. They're going to be like, yeah, my dad's a, kind of a rough, tough dude and working in construction and all that stuff, and he's humble enough to be able to ask for forgiveness from me.
Yeah.
And so that's a very powerful thing, something that I know that really helped me out a lot. How about you?
Yeah, and I got a funny story, but it tripped my kid. It tripped my kids out. I know we've been talking about serious stuff. Totally tripped my kids out.
I can't wait for this.
After my stroke, one of the side effects to having a stroke is you get really emotional, and so here I was, man, Charmin commercials. Anything, I would be like, "Oh, that's so awesome." I was always crying about something. If someone was happy or sad or just a little bit, I was just an emotional wreck. And they did not know what to do with that. They were like, Dad's never like this.
Yeah.
What the heck's going on?
Usually when tears come out his eyes when you smash his thumb.
Yeah, I know. So it was weird. They're like, are you
bet.
okay, Dad?
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm fine. It was just really cool.
Yes.
They're like,
Yes.
what the heck is going on?
What?
And then we talked to a doctor, and he's like, no, it's part of the whole stroke thing. And they're like, okay, but it's still weird.
Still.
But yeah.
That's a good story. Yes.
That was total rabbit trail, but I just thought of it. So.
But I mean, there's still. I mean, they knew who you were. They knew immediately there was something's not right with that.
Yeah.
Right? They knew.
Well, yeah, because I didn't usually do that.
No, he does it a lot with me now.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
he's crying out Snapdragons and all these other little things to me, and it's pinches his little finger. And
So, okay, I got to tell you guys. All right. He brought
I
it
knew
up.
this was gonna
He
come up.
brought it up. Okay, so the other day, he cut something wrong.
You're lucky I have to drive because I would be more engaging here.
So he cut something wrong. And so then instead of saying, oh crap, or anything like that, he goes, Snapdragon. And I'm like, what the hell is a Snapdragon? What are you talking about? That's his cuss word, was Snapdragon.
Snapdragon.
And I'm like, oh, Tony.
See, I said it like Snapdragon. And
No,
now he's
he
going,
did not.
Snapdragon.
No, he didn't. And so I'm like, oh, Snapdragon. Oh, Tony.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, Snapdragon. And so now every time he does something wrong,
That's
I'm
right.
like, Snapdragon.
What is-
Snapdragon.
Snapdragon. You're gonna go Snapdragon.
Snapdragon.
Oh.
Gotta teach this guy how to cuss.
I know. He's
man.
still working on me. I'm a hopeless case some days.
Yeah, he is definitely the PG version of me. Because I'm like, what in the hell are you talking about? He's like, Snapdragon? So anyhow, on that note, we're almost where we need to be, so I'm going to sign off. This was Guy.
Tony.
And thank you for watching or not watching or turning us off or whatever
Yep.
you did. All right, talk to you tomorrow. Bye.